Hi, welcome. My name is Jackie. Thank you for joining me on this flow today. This will be a basic style flow, maybe a little more fundamental, going through the different techniques, different modifications that you can make as you move through practice. So if you are one who has some injuries, limitations, feel free to take the modifications and pause the video at any point in time to really grow into each pose. If you need assistance from a block, feel free to grab a block or have padding under your knees. You can use a blanket or a towel for that. I'm actually sitting on a couple of rugs, so no padding needed. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. Also, please subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram as well using the same handle at Yogini, Y-O-G-I-N-E-Y. I appreciate your patience and I appreciate your dedication to this practice and hope that you are able to learn something new. Namaste. So let's start in child's pose. From here, the knees can be maybe hip to shoulder width apart. And this is kind of a nice way to relax the body and relax the spine and decompress everything. So maybe the arms extend out in front of you. And you just let your body, let everything melt down. If you'd like to come down with your arms reaching back, feel free to do so. Your head can come down to the ground. And just take a few clearing breaths. Just noticing the weight of your body pressing down to the earth. Relaxing your arms, relaxing your hips. And from here, let the arms extend out in front of you. Walking it forward, maybe you lift your head up on an inhale. Feel your right palm pressing down to your left. And then sink down nice and low. Your head can rest between your arms, between your shoulders. The next inhale, lift your head. Walk your hands to the opposite side and let your head once again sink down nice and low. Now feel the stretching through the ribs. Feel the weight of your body down and towards your hips. The next inhale, come back to center. And then exhale, sink down into child's pose again. This time let's take a deeper movement. On the next inhale, rise up to your hands and knees. And this time, taking your right palm to the left side, sink your hips down towards the right heel. A little deeper, a little longer. On the next inhale, you come back to center and take your left hand over to the right side. And again, sink down to your left heel. On the next inhale, you come back to center, and this time, take a moment to roll out the spine. You can find some side bends. Maybe you take a couple cat-cows. As far as the toes tucking under, it's nice to have the toes tucked under if you need that extra stabilization through the knee joint. You can also let the toes flip backwards. From here, the hands are just beneath your shoulders, the knees just beneath your hips. And you pull the shoulders back on an inhale to draw your belly open, and an exhale to round yourself down so that you're pulling your belly up towards your spine. Another inhale as you draw the belly downward. And as you exhale, round through the spine. One more time, an inhale here. And exhale, lower the elbows down to the floor, just beneath your shoulders. So one of my favorite stretches to start off with is always going to be letting the toes tuck under and coming into a deep calf stretch. Whether you start with the right leg or the left leg is really up to you. Essentially, it's just trying to create a little bit more length, just because we don't often really focus on the calves. And that could be, for many of us, the key to creating a longer spine rather than feeling a tight low back. So feel free to hold this for as long as you'd like to. And then you bring the knee back under the hip, and then you extend the opposite leg back. And again, feel free to stretch for as long as you like. You can even shift the weight from side to side. So maybe into your big toe,
maybe into your pinky toe, whatever feels good for you. And then from here, bring your knee back under the hip and bring your palms to the floor. This time, tuck your toes under and inhale to draw your belly down, the shoulders roll back. And as you exhale, come into downward facing dog. So this may or may not be something that you can do at the moment. It's definitely a pose that a lot of people have to progress into. But the idea is that it's not important to drop the heel down, although that can be the goal for some of you. What's more important is really anchoring down through the palms. So the palms are about hip to shoulder apart, head is heavy. Shake your head yes and no, bend your knees, let them go a little softer so that you really push the weight from your wrists and shift it towards the back of your thighs, towards your hips. Now, rather than feeling your shoulders really shrugging up and any tension around the neck, you actually begin to push away from the floor with your arms. Your head is heavy, your neck is long, you can shake your head again, yes and no. Now you feel your shoulder blades engaging in your shoulder tops, like where your shoulder pads would be if you had a jacket on with shoulder pads. Those would be engaged. Your belly hugs in tight, and you allow your thighs and your belly almost to melt down. And then from here, eventually letting your heels pedal down and back. Maybe eventually with the calves relaxed and stretched, you can get the heels long and the legs long. Now soften the knees and gaze forward between your thumbs. As you exhale, step to the top of the mat. Now you can step, you can hop, you can float. You lift up halfway, nice and strong to the back side. Now maybe grazing your fingers towards your shins. Maybe you feel yourself pressing up. Imagine that your back and your chest is like a ledge, and you're trying to push up away from the calves. Now it doesn't mean that you have to come up this high, but the idea is that this side is flat and this side is engaged. All this is engaged and supporting. So for some of you, maybe it means that you bend the knees and you lengthen up. So if you find that your legs are straight and again you're rounded to the back, kind of like how we don't want the downward dog to be, then let the knees bend and let everything else flatten. As you exhale, melt down. Feel free to widen your feet, heel toe them apart. You grab your elbows, you shake your head yes and no, and just sway from side to side and inhale in one direction, and then exhale in the other. Swaying slowly back and forth. Now you feel the heaviness of your upper body open in the back of your thighs. And again, you can pause here and stay for as long as you'd like. When you're ready, release the hands, softening through the knees. Inhale, rise up, nice and tall. Let the arms stretch up to the sky. Now from here, maybe you bind your fingers together, or you can grab your wrist or bind your elbows. Exhale, a side bend to one direction, right or left is up to you. And inhale to center, and then exhale to the other side. Inhale, reach tall, embrace your palms behind the hips. And again, this is one of my favorite back bends, allowing yourself to really squeeze through the belly, squeeze through the hips, and open your heart. As you exhale, melt down all the way towards the floor. And then inhale, lift up halfway, and exhale, round down again. Shake your head yes and no. Again, feel free to stay here for a few times, for a few breaths. Inhale, rise up, and then exhale to the right. Inhale, back up. Exhale to the left. Inhale, reach up. Maybe from here, the elbows hold on. Maybe from here, your palms connect. Interlacing your fingers, open your chest and stretch your heart forward. Exhale, melt down. Feel free to release your hands at any point in time. Inhale, lift up halfway, and then exhale, forward fold. Again, inhale, rise up. Taking this as slowly or as quickly as your breath allows, as far as you feel comfortable. Everything really moves with the breath. So now, just whatever variation serves you the best. So take this through a couple more times. So feel free again to hit pause at this moment and allow yourself to move through. Now, on this last round, we're going to take it through, opening your chest, forward folding from here. Now releasing your hands down to the floor, lift up halfway. And we're going to open the feet just a little bit wider. So I'm going to change my perspective so that you can see where I'm going. So my feet are, instead of being together, are a little bit further apart. The toes are going to point out slightly, and you can adjust the width. So if you want to narrow your feet, you can. And then from here, let your hips sink down, and then let your heart press forward. So your belly pulls in, the heart towards your thumbs, maybe your elbows to your inner thighs, and you're trying to reach forward with your sternum. If it's uncomfortable for you, maybe you find that you can't quite open up yet and you have to have your hands in front of you, feel free to do so. If you find that your heels are lifted, that's okay. You can place a blanket underneath your heels too. But just trying to, come into this malasana. So this is just a deep squat. Another option, because I know that this may be jarring or maybe a little too deep for some of you, is to come into what we call just a modified malasana. So maybe coming in with your hands, your elbows, to your knees, and just noticing how that feels. I know it's going to be a little bit of a strain holding that pose because you're not going to be fully resting. Lift. So from here, we're going to lift the hips up, halfway opening, plant the palms down, step the feet back, and come to the top of a push-up. Now from here, high plank, come down to your knees first. And then from here, rather than letting your hips push back, which I see a lot of, we're going to let the hips angle slightly forward so that you're nice and flat through the spine. Squeezing the belly, squeezing your thighs together. Let your elbows bend towards your toes as you lower all the way down. An inhale here, you back bend. The shoulders roll back, nice and strong through the spine. And then from here, exhale, tuck your toes under, or sink into child's pose. So you can tuck your toes under into downward dog, which is that upside down V, or come into child's pose. Now take a couple of breaths here. And the next inhale, rise up to your hands and knees. And then from here, tuck your toes under, send the hips high. Downward facing dog. Now again, if downward dog doesn't really serve you very well, then come down to your hands and knees instead. So I'm going to start with this option for those of you who may have some issues with opening your chest, or maybe it's uncomfortable for your shoulders, or even for your wrists, because I know that being in downward dog can be hard on the wrist. So here's an option to come into tabletop. You inhale and kick the right leg back behind you. Now kick so that you're strong, not that you don't want to let the leg lag. You want to find some length. So you want to lift through the heel, and then you're going to bend the knee and bring it underneath your body. If that means that you have to kind of sweep your leg around you, feel free to do so. You can always, as well, grab your ankle and help it forward. So we come into this kneeling crescent lunge. And inhale, maybe your hands come to your knees, or your front knee, not your knees. The front knee. Maybe the left arm reaches up overhead. Maybe both hands reach up. As you exhale, take a side bend to the right. Nice and long for that stretch. And inhale back to center. And then exhale, lower the hand. Step the front leg back. And coming into your tabletop. On the next inhale, the left leg extends. Again, we're lifting and not dropping the hips down too low. So we're lifting and pushing away from the floor. As you exhale, again, the foot can come underneath you. It can sweep around you. You can also grab your ankle and help it forward. From here, the hands can come to the front knee. Both arms can reach high, or maybe just one hand, and you side bend if that feels good for you. Inhale to center. Exhale, lower the hands, and once again, feel free to step the front leg back. Now, if the downward dog doesn't work, if the vinyasa, which is that high to low plank, so coming into a modified vinyasa, high plank and lowering down, into your back bend, and then into your child's pose, into downward dog, whatever. If that doesn't work for you, feel free instead to take a cat-cow. dropping your belly, and then rounding your spine. So any of those work as a way to reset. On the next inhale, the right leg extends back. As you exhale, step the foot forward. Inhale, lift the arms up. Maybe an exhale to side bend. Inhale back up. Exhale, lower the hands. Step the front leg back. And again, this could be a downward dog, so up to you how you choose to take it. Inhale, the left leg rises. Exhale, step the foot forward. And again, if your foot doesn't come between your palms and it falls short, grab your ankle, help it up. Lower the knee. Inhale, arms up to the sky. Exhale, side bend to the left. Inhale, back up. And exhale, lower the hands. Step the front leg back. Downward dog or all fours. Again, it's up to you. However you choose to take it. Cat-cow is an option. And again, this is just a way to reset the spine. And inhale, the right leg kicks back. And exhale, you step it through. Inhale, kneeling crescent lunge. Exhale, side bend. Inhale, back up. Exhale, lower the hands, step it back. So we're going to take this through the left side. Again, feel free to pause. Feel free to modify. Feel free to take this through a few rounds or even intensify. Beautiful. So from child's pose, kick up into downward facing dog. Soften the knees, gaze forward. Exhale, step your feet to the top. We're going to start at the top of the mat for this next sequence. Halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise up, nice and tall, reaching the arms to the sky. And then exhale, bring your palms together, thumbs to your heart. Now maybe you close your eyes and allow your palms to connect with your heart pressing deeper towards your thumbs. And this will help to open your shoulders. You feel your thighs engaging, feel your glutes squeezing in, your belly towards your spine. Imagine that you're trying to just kind of squeeze in the entire body towards the center line of your core. Now the next inhale, circle the arms up and overhead. As you exhale, feel free to bend forward once again. On the inhale, lift up halfway. Now from here, take the back of your left fingertips to the outside of the right calf. As you inhale, reach the right arm open, nice and wide. As you exhale, bring the right hand to the outside of the left leg. Bending the right knee, inhale, open deeply through the left arm. Nice and strong. As you exhale, lower yourself back down, nice and low, halfway lift on the inhale. Exhale, plant the hands, step the left leg back. Now soften the back of the inhale, roll into a crescent lunge. Your body weight is centered. The front knee is deeply bent, the back knee is soft. Shoulders pulled back, nice and broad to the heart. As you exhale, spiral the back heel down and reach open nice and wide. So as you're here, the collarbone is really extending. Your shoulder blades are pulling back and you're reaching from front to back. So rather than leaning forward, try to feel as if you're growing tall through the spine and sinking a little deeper through the limbs. On the next inhale, reversing the warrior, right arm reaches up to the sky. As you exhale, straighten the front leg and begin to reach forward through the right arm. So I find that it's helpful to keep the left hand almost towards the right pocket to allow your shoulders to roll back rather than sinking forward. So we're trying to find this nice rotation through the chest. We're trying to squeeze the side bodies together. We're reaching forward through the right arm. Let the right hand come to rest at the inside of the shin. Now if you want to use a block, you can grab the block and let it rest wherever you feel most stable. And then you're opening your heart space, nice and wide. Now most of my students I see that have issues with this, I think that their shoulders are typically roll forward. Their head is gazing downward towards the back toe. So this will actually start to make your spine kind of curve forward. So rather than doing that, gaze almost perpendicular to where the front foot, like the inside of the front foot would face. And so we're gazing forward, gazing towards the left wall, and then we're rotating through that left shoulder. Maybe lifting the gaze. So imagine that if you had a wall behind you that you're trying to get flush into the wall. And you're stretching through the left limbs, again, squeezing through the belly, bringing the thighs in together. So rather than feeling as if your legs are trying to push apart, find that little squeeze. Try to pull everything in ever so slightly. Now soften the gaze down towards the right big toe, and then bend the knees slightly to give yourself a little bit of movement. And then inhale, rise up, nice and tall. We're gonna flip it to the other side. And then feel free to move the block, lower the hands, step it back, and then take your vinyasa. So again, the vinyasa can be any sort of form that you need. Again, it's just a way to reset the spine. From downward dog, we step forward to the top. And inhale to lift halfway. Rather than coming into mountain pose, this time go ahead and take the back fingers of the right hand to the outside of the left calf. Now bending the right knee. Inhale, we sweep open, nice and broad. Opening the heart, opening the spine. Notice how my left hip is pushing back and the crown of my head is extending forward. So there's this lengthening that's happening. The spine is nice and strong versus feeling rounded. So we're trying to lift and open. Now if you want to grab the block, here's a way to use it. Pressing it down in front of your toes, you grow taller. Now some people have issues with their neck. If that's the case, then bring your hand to your hip and just focus on the collar and the heart pressing towards the wall. As you exhale, you simply switch it out. Left hand to your right shin, maybe to the block, the left knee bends. And again from here, you can bring your palm to your hip and let the shoulders pull back. Nice and strong, nice and long through the right side. So notice from here, I'm leaning. It's almost as if I were to get the wall to my right, I would lean my leg, my hip, my shoulder, my chest, and my palm all the way up into the wall. As you exhale, forward fold. Once again, halfway lift. This time we step the right leg back. And again, step so that you have enough space between your legs in order to find balance. Soften your back knee, begin to roll yourself up, squeezing through the thighs, squeezing through the hips, and then you reach up to the sky. This is our crescent lunge. Now, again, as you're here, just like in the chair pose, if you'd like to bring your palms together and focus on getting the heart forward, rather than feeling if you have your arms in front of you or feeling your shoulders rounded, this may not feel as comfortable as this. So this stretching will actually open up as you practice more and more. And I'm losing my balance. So palms together, thumbs to your heart, and then heart to your thumbs. This is your crescent lunge. As you exhale, spiral the back heel down. And then again, we're opening the legs wide. So imagine if you had a book and you're just opening the pages of the book. Open everything nice and wide. And again, your heart is pressing forward. The collarbones widen. And you feel the extension, so your arms are attached to the collar. And so we're just merely extending from the collar, from fingertip to fingertip. And again, rather than reaching forward, we're trying to grow nice and tall. Sink a little deeper through the hips if you want to get lower, but not by folding forward or hinging forward. And we might do this if we want to come up a little taller into a reverse warrior. So feel free, reach forward if you'd like, and take that reverse warrior. But it's not, in my opinion, not super necessary to do that. Stretch through the left rib cage, squeeze in through the belly, squeezing through the thighs. I know that it can be a little tiring on the legs to hold this, but reach the left fingertips up. And again, if it's uncomfortable, feel free to soften the elbows. You don't have to be stick straight. That's just something that maybe eventually you'll get to. As you exhale, straighten the front leg. And again, my right hand is reaching towards my left pocket. And this again helps to rotate my heart. So I'm reaching forward, almost like you're channeling your inner Jane Fonda from the 80s or whatever, leggings and the leotard. Reaching forward when you can no longer reach, Then lower the hand down. And again, you can use a block to hold on to. Now, as far as the rotation, again, we're trying to reach the right hand into the pocket to rotate the heart. So rather than feeling as if you're sinking and shrinking, you want to feel as if you're opening and lengthening. Imagine that your body is a slice of toast, and you're trying to slide it into an old school toaster where you insert the bread in from the top. And so you're just trying to get nice and flat. So it's not about how low your hand is, because if your hand is here and everything else is shrugging, we're not finding any sort of extension. You're not really utilizing the pose to its potential. So from here, and then to come out of it, you soften the bottom knee first so that you're not stiff through the joints. Gaze at that toe so you don't strain your neck, and then from there, you kind of rise up. And then of course, we pivot to the other side, planting the hands down, step it back, high to low. Now feel free to take that and repeat that a few times. So go ahead and hit pause, and I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, so come on to your bottom. And take the time out to stretch maybe the back of the thighs, the hips. I know that for some of us who have really tight hips, coming into a seat like this is really uncomfortable. Maybe with your legs long, this is kind of what your back looks like. You kind of lean, or if you try to sit taller, maybe there's a bend to the knees. So one alternative to bypass that issue until we create a little bit more flexibility is by sitting on something like a block or a blanket. You can take a block just like this and sit on this. If you have a blanket, which I don't have with me at the moment, you can also fold that up so that you kind of sit towards the end of it. And this is a nice little option here. If this is comfortable for you, that's great. The idea of having something like this underneath your hips is that it elevates your legs up a little bit longer, elevates your body up a little bit longer so that the legs don't have to go as sharp at an angle at the hips. So you see how it kind of gives me a little bit more of an obtuse angle here versus the 90 degrees that I was going towards sitting on the floor. So from here, you can just kind of get yourself into a nice comfortable position and just notice how it feels to point the toes forward, and then notice how it feels to pull the toes back. And so you're going to get different muscles that are going to be lengthened and strengthened. So I like to use rhyming words, so I apologize if it sounds kind of cheesy. But if you point your toes, the back of the thighs, the hamstrings, and then the calves all become a little tighter. So the front side stretches, and this gets usually a little bit easier it's an easier stretch to get into versus pulling the toes back. So when you do this, you actually stretch out the back side and you engage the top side. So it's all about the opposing muscles. And your body kind of works really evenly, and it works in a balanced way, just like anything else, like you think of your breath or night and day, black and white, whatever it is. So we're just trying to find a nice little balance. So I would suggest if you have very tight hamstrings, very tight calf, very tight low back, that you start off with your toes pointing forward first. And just kind of see how that feels. Now, coming into this pose, there are a couple of variations and actually two different poses. There's one where we're actually trying to hinge at the hips. And notice what that means. It's like, the door that's over here, there's a hinge on one side and the door only opens on that hinge. So like a book that opens and closes versus a magazine that can roll. So the first one would be hinging at the hips, and the hinge of the hips really focuses on the hamstrings and the back of the legs because we're trying to keep the torso a little bit longer, a little bit taller, and really isolating the movement through here. Now, if we were to come into a different pose, this would be where we are rounding the spine, and this is going to provide more of a stretch through that back side. So two different stretches. So depending on what it is you're going for some of you who have tight backs, maybe the rounding stretch is great. For those who may have, say, a disc that is herniated, or maybe a very sensitive disc. I have one in my neck, so I know that can feel a little awkward every once in a while. If that's the case, then really try to focus on keeping the posture nice and erect, and then hinging at the hips instead. And of course, you can play with the intensity by lengthening the legs forward or by pulling the toes back. Two completely different things, so feel free to experiment with that. And again, don't try to push things so far. It's not about how deep you stretch into a pose, but more about what you're getting from it. So really tune into your body's feedback, okay? So once you get there, maybe if you can bind your first two fingers around the big toe, you can do that. And I'm going to take the block away because for me it's not very comfortable. So coming into the simple seat, toes pulled back, nice and tall to the spine. And then you can start with an inhale and you grow tall, and as you exhale, you lean and again, hinging at the hips forward. Now you can grab hold of your toes. You can actually also grab hold of your shins, or if you have a strap or a belt or something that you can, a towel even, loop it around the base of your feet and then hold on to it. So imagine if I'm gripping a strap or something. I would lean forward and hinge at the hips. So notice how pulled back my toes are. And again, that's deepening the stretch of the back of my legs. Now to counter this, an inhale, we come back up. Maybe from here you can reach back, pointing the toes, and we take this reverse plank. Now, everyone's gonna have different anatomy. We're not gonna be all the same, and different levels and movement patterns. So if you're able to bring your palms down with the fingers forward, feel free to do so. Toes forward, and then you're gonna squeeze in your belly, squeeze in your backside, and lift the hips to the top. Now, rather than letting your eyes gaze forward towards your toes, see if you can kind of let your head lean back. And again, it doesn't matter, how intense you make it. Just make it your own. Really own what you're doing. Feel comfortable and confident with what you're doing. If it's uncomfortable, breathe into that space. If it's painful, come out, modify. Now, if it's a matter of the hand position, you can always change it. Maybe fingers pointing out works better for your shoulders or your chest. Also, fingers pointing back. Another alternative would be maybe fingers pointing back and then feet grounded through the soles. So from here, it's more of a reverse crab. You're pressing down through the palms, pressing down through the soles of your feet, and you're lifting your hips up this way. And that's just one way of kind of doing the opposite of this forward fold, would be to extend instead. Now from here, take your right foot to the inside of the left thigh. And so we're going to, once again, lift the arms up on the inhale. As you exhale, fold forward, find a deep stretch. If you can only reach for your calf, that's okay, reach for the calf. If you want to try to work your way down, maybe you notice if you pause and hold this for, say, 10 breaths, that might be equivalent to about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, depending on how fast or slow you breathe. And so as you continue breathing, you might notice that your body becomes more and more relaxed. Maybe you're able to get a little deeper and deeper. And again, it's not about how low I can go, because I don't want you guys to strain. So if you're reaching, and this is kind of what you look like, where you're feeling like your back is almost pushing behind you, see if you can instead focus on creating a stronger, taller spine. And that's going to give you a more beneficial stretch through the calf than straining, because you guys, think of the posters that you guys see if you've ever been into an employee locker room where they have the posters that show the proper technique to lifting. You want to lift using your legs. You want to stretch to avoid any strain on the back. And so even this pose right here where you're reaching, if you're reaching beyond what you're capable of, or maybe you have a sensitive back or sensitive disc, this may be counterintuitive to what your body should be doing, and that may cause a bit more harm than good. So really be careful, listen to your body, again, listen to the feedback. We're going to take it to the other side. The left foot goes to the inside of the right thigh, and again, grow tall, flex the foot, lift the arms up on the inhale, exhale, reach forward. Again, you can hold a strap, you can grab your ankles, your shins, your calf, you can grab your foot, and if you're able to go beyond this, maybe you can reach forward and bind your hand around the wrist. Bind your hand around the wrist. It gives you a little deeper stretch. And again, this is just something to work towards. It's not something that we can all get to and attain within one practice. Definitely it's taken me a few years to get to this point with my hamstrings and my calves. On the next inhale, reach up nice and tall. And then we're going to take the soles of the feet together. So this is coming into our toddler pose, or some of us know this as butterfly from when we were in PE. I would say grab the thumbs or wrap them around the base of your arches. And this is almost like you're trying to read a book. So doing this actually helps to accentuate the opening of the thighs rather than trying to bring it forward, because then everything wants to close up. So we're just trying to open and extend. You don't have to, again, if it's not comfortable, listen to your body. So see how that feels. Couple of variations with this. If you come into this pose, and I've seen this in students, maybe they come really tightly in and they're kind of squished up this way, and they're actually just holding onto their feet for dear life so that they don't fall back. You don't have to be this close. You can actually walk your feet forward. And still, even here, like if you have really tight inner thighs or tight legs, feel free to bring your feet even further. Just let yourself get comfortable. And that might be an issue as well. So if that's the case, to find yourself more comfortable so that you're able to relax, you can take a block, and again, I only have one block today, but if you had 2 blocks, which is the ideal case, you would place the block under each leg so that you're supporting the weight, and then from there, you can let yourself relax and grow heavier with every breath. So feel free to hold that for as long as you'd like. And again, when you're there, maybe you relax your arms, maybe you relax your shoulders. Maybe you feel yourself pressing your face towards your feet, and you relax the neck. Again, hold this for just a few breaths, feeling everything relax. And then when you're ready, you inhale and rise up, bringing the knees in towards each other. Maybe from here, you reach your hands back. And we're just gonna kind of lean back, like we're reclining, just kind of lounging. Maybe separating the feet slightly or hip width apart, maybe even wider. Take this time to gently sway the knees from side to side, just rocking them back and forth, giving yourself a chance to kind of open one side of the hips, and then open the other. And then we continue this movement. Lower yourself all the way down. And then maybe the arms go open wide. And then as you take your knees, and again, you shift it all the way over. Maybe the hips move over to the right as the knees drift over to the left. Now from here, you can just pause. And I definitely feel it through my right side, my hip, up into my back. Kind of feeling it through the quadriceps lumborum, which is that muscle that holds up your lower back. And then the shoulders the shoulder blades flatten into the floor. If you want to take it deeper, bring your bottom foot and bring it to rest on top of your knee. And just that adds an additional weight to feel the stretch a little bit deeper through the top hip. You can gaze upward. You can gaze towards the opposite shoulder, whatever feels good for you. And I know I say that a bit much, maybe just feeling what you feel and feel what's good for you, but it's really the truth, because again, everybody is so different. Some people have injuries or limitations that are not things that are quite noticeable physically on the outside, but maybe they have issues on the inside. Even though we have the same muscles and the same bones, they're not going to be the same shape. So take it to the other side. And again, if you'd like to, the bottom leg comes up, the foot comes up to the top of your thigh, and you feel that stretch. And again, if it's not comfortable, change it. So, you can go through photos of different skeletons. And like I said, you'll have the same bones. So everybody will have the same say, femur, which is the leg bone. And the angle in which that joint goes into the hip socket can be different. So, male and female, we're both different. Like one's more forward facing, one's wider, more lateral facing. Some of us have joints that are angled, the socket is angled a little bit differently. And then of course, depending on the hip structure, that's gonna vary. And so we all have similar structures, but they're not always gonna be the same. And so it's really important to listen to your body and really tune into the feedback that you're getting, differentiating between what is painful and what is uncomfortable. So discomfort is typically the movement of the muscle, the stretching that you feel. Pain would be anything that is sharp, if you feel like it's bone on bone, like your joint has no place to go, and yet you keep pushing. We don't want to get to that point. And then of course, whatever underlying issues you may have from injuries or limitations, etc. So once you get that, feel free to hug your knees into your chest and give yourself a little squeeze just to kind of stretch the back of the body through the sacrum, your SI joint. Plant the feet down, shoulders roll back, and this is always one of the staples to our practice, is doing this back bend. And it's not really a back bend, but it can be if you go into a wheel pose. But this bridge pose really does help us to engage and activate. Now I'm going to show you this from the other angle so you can kind of see what I see as a teacher and what's a better practice and what is not as great. So typically your feet are going to be hip to shoulder width apart. Now the knees and the feet and the hips all should be about the same width apart. Typically what I see, and I'm going to show you from this angle because sometimes it's just easier to see it versus not. I see people coming in and this is what happens. And they open their knees wide. Or I see this and this is what happens. And either way, you're not engaging. One is collapsing inward and one's collapsing outward. So the ideal is to keep everything engaged, keeping the inner thighs engaged, pressing strongly through the soles of your feet, and keeping everything hip width apart. So if anything, you can imagine that there's a little bit of movement, a little bit of tension here through the inner thighs. So without even moving my legs, I'm just trying to squeeze the inner thighs just a little bit closer in. And that may be a little bit more intense for some people, but the idea is there that you're trying to squeeze and pull everything in and up versus collapsing out or collapsing in. And then of course, when you're ready to come down, start from the top of the spine, roll down one vertebra at a time, and then come to rest. Now, once you come into rest, once again, we come into our happy baby. From happy baby, we keep the hips rooted. So this is one of those easy poses that I feel most people want to try to reach for their toes, want to try to reach for their feet, and this is what happens. And it's this. Maybe their hamstrings are tight, and they're doing this, and then it's kind of like they are a turtle that's fallen onto the back of its shell. And it's kind of like this teetering that feels really unstable and unbalanced. So if that's the case, if that's you, where your hips are coming up, where your head is coming up, release your hands from your feet and lower your head down. Now, rather than reaching up to your feet or up to your ankles, bring it down. Bring it down so that your hips really sink. We want the weight of the legs to be in the back of the hips. And then the legs will open so you can, don't be ashamed to hold onto your calves. This is great. Your body's going to thank you for this later. So don't be afraid to hold onto your calves and to root down through the shoulder blades and to rock from side to side. And you will feel so much more stable, so much more stress-free. And this is, again, a happy baby, not stressed out baby. So nice and mellow. And then from here, hug your knees into your chest. Now, one option for a twist is hugging the right knee in and extending the left leg long. Now, again, some of you may have really tight legs, and so this leg comes up a little bit, and that's okay. What we're going to do is take the top leg across the body and twist it up and over. And then we come into this extension, this spinal twist. Now, if your knee, so mine isn't touching the ground, if your knee doesn't touch the ground and you're holding on because it's uncomfortable or maybe your shoulders are coming up, use your props. you can actually grab your block and either let it rest underneath your thigh. If you have a bolster, which is a big, thick, rectangular pillow, you can let it rest completely under your leg, kind of like I have this here. And that'll give you a nice, easier stretch so you don't feel the strain in your backside or in your shoulders or in your legs as you come into this final twist. So again, pause here for a few breaths. Feel free to pause on the screen. And then we'll take an inhale, coming back to center. And then of course, we're gonna bring the left knee in as the right leg extends long, twisting the knee across the body. When you're ready from here, the knee can come down to the ground. You can use the block to rest underneath your thigh, shoulders down and back. You can use a bolster, and you don't even have to twist all the way. There are so many other variations. So from here, if your both knees want to bend, you can of course do that. Another option would be to take the top leg and to extend it out. And I like to do this one and hold my toes, so that doesn't go anywhere. This leg can extend down as well, or even taking both legs out to the side. So it's just a matter of preference and of course like how much space you have where you're practicing, because my legs are really off of the mat at this point. Inhale, come back to center. And then one more time, we're gonna grab the knees, and this time circle the knees clockwise a few times. Circle counterclockwise a few times. And then when you're ready, come into your final place of rest. So this is your Shavasana. The feet are on either corners of the mat, the palms maybe up or down, the shoulder blades tucked under if that's comfortable. You can also simply bring your palms together over the heart. Now close your eyes. And watch your breath. Take a deep breath into the nose and hold that breath. With your mouth wide open, release a sigh. Again, inhale through the nose and pause. And exhale. Again, pause. When you're ready to come out of this, start by bringing awareness back into your breath. Bring awareness back into your body. Slowly wiggling the fingers, wiggling the toes, rolling the wrists, rolling the ankles. On an inhale, stretch the arms back behind you. As you exhale, hug your knees towards your heart, giving yourself a loving squeeze. Now from here, we choose a side to rest upon. And maybe we come all the way over to one side in the fetal pose. That transition from Shavasana, corpse pose, into fetal pose is a